stairs. Nia coming in, but will take the hit. Eruption on the generator as well. Eruption and Call of Ride. Nia does take a hit through the wall. So I don't know if it matters. Oh, and the dissolution value! These survivors. Deliverance from Claudette. Sprint bursting to the hot.
It's the same with these masks in the one event. She didn't get a mask either.
No! Oh, the ground!
Yeah, oh, that was nice. Look at this thing.
They're trying.
Pokey, nerf Nancy, man.
She's gonna get hacked, maybe?
Oh my god, she might just get hacked, potentially. I think she does. Holy cow. I cannot believe.
They do get the spirit reset and they get the down.
Yes, they will get the survivors leaving the trial, and there's going to be the teleport. The Nia, she's right here, but Nia needs to go.
Hey, what is up, guys? It's Guildspire here, and welcome back to Champions of the Fog. And we are starting off things strong today, as we are going to be seeing Infinity's Nurse against Dark Owl's Survivor team. And a really strong start here, as Nurse has been able to identify not just one, but two different survivors. However, with the use of a really well-timed sprint burst, these survivors are definitely holding their own. The question is whether or not the Nurse will be able to do the same. Do you want to note that survivors are aware of two perks already right here off the beginning of the match, that there is a corrupt intervention as well as a dying light. A bit of an unusual pick. We don't see that all too often, but we'll see if it pays out in the Nurse's favor. With that being said, we are going to see the first hook here. That is going to be one stack of Dying Light, and also another perk revealed, that which being is Agitation. Nancy, though, unable to get away fast enough, as they will end up taking a hit. And it looks like Nurse is going to be content kind of sitting at this hook here, potentially pushing this survivor to second stage. We'll have to wait and see if it pays off for them, as we do see this gen about to pop off. There's the Jake, though, and the gen will pop off. Fourth perk still unknown as of right now. We'll have to wait and see if that is a end game perk. But about 15 seconds, 30 seconds to go before the survivor does move to second stage. That there is the survivor, one going from each side, trying to distract the Nurse. We will see what looks to be a 1-for-1 trade here. Jake will end up going down, but Nurse, with their eyes on the prize, will doubling back, going for the survivor, going for the heal. And looks like they are going to go for the double down here. And there's the long blink. There's the second one. There's the down. That is now two survivors on the ground. Two survivors injured. A huge momentum play here for the Nurse, to say the least. We'll have to wait and see if there is a deliverance in play. Potentially why the Nurse opted not to go for the pickup, as that will be a pretty significant pressure shift if they do end up having it in hand. But with another survivor on hook now, deliverance really does not matter. So the Nurse in a fantastic possession here. The two other injured survivors in no way, shape, or form in a position to go for a unhook here. So they're going to have to spend at least another 16 seconds in order to get this heal, giving this Nurse plenty of time to pressure these hooks. Nurse also seeing what looks to be the Nia off in the distance. So far, no sign of the Nancy, and Nurse is kind of holding the power here. Speaking of this, I'm actually really surprised that they haven't made it to where the Nurse can't indefinitely hold their power. It would be a slight nerf to Nurse's power, but, you know, I think it would be a welcome one. With that being said, it looks like they are going to go back and protect the Jake. I'm not sure if it's the right play, though, as we did see the unhook earlier. It was safe, so it could potentially be deliverance. They do have some time left until they're able to, so we'll have to wait and see. But Nia now in chase, going back to the tile they went down to before, and Nurse on point as of ever. And it looks like Jake will get unhooked right in the nick of time. Amazing play there. However, And a little bit of an unfortunate situation here as they do end up going down. 2 survivors on the ground again. This nurse has all the pressure in the world. Dying Light slowing things down as well. And there's the Nia. She gets up with the Unbreakable just in the nick of time. Nurse going for a swing though, and they will miss at the locker. Nia making an amazing play here that could potentially bring things back in their favor, especially as we do see the heal on the Nancy. However, no unhook on the other survivor, Iggy, as of yet. We'll have to wait and see what this looks like, but looks like Nurse will be dragging these survivors further in towards the middle. We do see scratch marks. Looks like they will get that unhook in time. I mean, so far, the survivors have managed to not get a single progression here on hook, just in the nick of time every single time. The question is, will it be enough for them to potentially complete these next 3 generators? Especially as Dying Light only becomes more and more powerful with time, as there is now 4 stacks. If I remember correctly, I want to say it's 3% per stack, so it's now 12% slowdown on these gens, on heals, on totems, etc. So we'll have to wait and see what that looks like, but Yunjin going to be in chase now. Looks like Nurse will pressure. We do see that unhook in the distance. Nurse not all too concerned, and either forcing the pick or potentially a head on the locker next to, but it's hard to say. We do see what looks to be the Jake jumping off that gen. And Nurse will take some time now to jump on over, as we are going to be seeing a pop goes the Weasel, regressing that gen by 30% of its current progression, which is kind of insane to think about now that we are at the Singularity or End Transmission update. So a significant buff to pop and getting a lot of value there, to say the least. 5 stacks now on Dynamite as well. These survivors in a world of hurt. These gens are gonna be taking quite a long time, as we do see scratch marks moving out of main. And it looks like Nurse, hold up. I think the Nurse may have seen exactly what I saw too. I think there may have been a survivor in the little kitty corner there where basement can be, but no, Nurse doesn't see it. Looks like they are gonna be looking back at the gen, but no sign of it. They do see scratch marks through the main building, and that's the Nia. This is a fantastic find for the Nurse. The question is where the other 2 are. As we say all the time with S tiers, it's not about how many survivors you get to escape through the exit gates, it's about how many gens you complete. So even completing 1 more gen would be a huge boon here for Dark Owl survivor team. But with that being said, Nia is doing a fantastic job holding their own. If I was a Nurse, I would think about disengaging here and protecting some of these generators, because if they don't, they are at risk of losing 1, if not 2 more, and that is not where you want to be. With that being said, Nurse with the misfire, but the Nia overextending will end up going down. And this here will be, I believe, the final hook for Nia and our 6th stack of Dying Light. And yep, there it is. There is another gen completed. We do see a survivor jumping off this gen. Pop goes Weasel in hand for another 30% regression. But a blast mine coming in, gonna give that survivor just a little bit of extra distance. The question now is, through 6 stacks of Dying Light, as well as Pop goes the Weasel on downs, will these survivors be able to complete another generator? It all comes down to the Jake and Nancy. That's a lot of pressure on their shoulders, though I'm sure they're up to the task. We do see scratch marks going over towards Shaq. That is the Jake, though. An unfortunate situation for these survivors, as Jake is caught out in a corner, unable to do much of anything. They will end up going down. I mean, you're next to Shaq. I think the right move here is to probably go for the hook, though. Nurse going to be blinking around, just checking where these gens are at. They do need to still be a little bit concerned about the gen to the left of main, but they do find the Nancy. We already saw the Unbreakable earlier. That's a sprint burst. Actually, no, that's a bounce landing from Nancy and a misfire from the Nurse. Going to give Nancy a little bit of extra distance. The question is, will it be enough for them to evade the oncoming chase as they do move towards the back of main? Looks like Nurse going to go for the prediction blink here, and it will pay out for them, as we do see scratch marks behind the hill here. No sign of Nancy, though. There she is, coming in right across, and they will get that hit. Really solid single blink hit there. Nancy, though, not going to be able to go far. They're going to be doubling back, and there's the down. Honestly, really impressive showing here by both sides. I think they both did a fantastic job we are going to be seeing, I believe, a nurse mirror match here on the cold tower. So we are going to be seeing Dark Owl's killer here in just a few moments. Do you want to know, that is Nancy's first hook, though I'm not sure if she has gotten a on-hook prior to now. The reason why that is relevant is the potential for a deliverance if things are in the survivor's favor. Though, do you want to note that Jake, nowhere to be found. It looks like they have caught off somewhere here on Cold Tower, with just about 2 minutes on their bleed out timer. Sorry, mildly distracted by another killer in the room. That is my kitten Butter, who is secretly closing the door to the room for some unknown reason. Maybe I'm a little bit too loud for a small kitten. With that being said, though, Nurse still out on the prowl for the Jake. Nowhere to be seen so far, though. About a minute on the clock. Keep in mind, Jake has been hooked already, and looks like they have been hooked only once. So this will be a loss of a point in an instance that Jake does bleed out. Now, that might not seem like a lot, but in a mirror match where every point counts, every gen counts, that actually might be relevant here, as we do see Nancy move to second stage, so no deliverance from her. We'll have to wait and see what comes of the Jake as they are slowly taken away at their bleed out timer. And looks like the nurse just unable to find them. Potentially that they're down in the basement. That's the only place that I can think as of right now. Nurse thinking the same thing. But no sign of them. Not even a peek from the Jake. And yeah, looking more and more like the nurse will not be able to claim the full 24 points, instead getting 23. So honestly, what that means for Dark Owls is if they're able to get a 4K at 3 gens completed, they will take set number 1 by all of 1 point. That is huge for their team, to say the least. Though I am wondering if the nurse is making the wrong move here. I think the Jake could potentially still be around hatch, and if they have adrenaline, that might be the way to ensure they don't bleed out if they close the hatch in time. But the nurse is too far away at this point. There's nothing they can do unless they find the Jake here and now, but no sign of them. And that will be Jake sent back to the campfire by the nurse's hands. All right, and we are back with trial number 2, Dark Owls killing against Infinity's survivor team on the Cold Tower. And the win conditions here are a little bit interesting, friends, as if Dark Owls is able to get a 4K at 2 gens remaining, they will win set number 1 by a singular point. That bleed out, as we talked about earlier, was huge for Dark Owls, to say the least, and with a very early down on Renato here, this could be quite significant. Nurse, though, avoiding to go to the basement instead, gonna bring them a little bit more towards the center of the map, though they'll have to be wary about these lockers here in case of a cheeky little head-on play, but they do get there in time, and we do want to note 3 perks have now been revealed to these survivors, that which being Thrilling Tremors, Agitation, Corrupt Intervention, the last one yet to be seen. We'll have to wait and see if that is an endgame perk or something else. That being said, Nurse content with that very early down, gonna be dropping off and looks like checking out where these gens might be. They should know exactly what gens were being worked on, and looks like they have successfully found the Nia, who will get boxed out into the corner here. Nurse going to be fatiguing out, but Nia not able to get a lot of distance, but Nurse dropping chase. No, faking it out instead, getting some good distance and getting a clean hit as well. Fantastic job there by the Nurse, faking out that Nia, to say the least. And looks like they are going to go for a bit of a prediction blink here. Nia not doubling back. Kind of catching the Nurse off guard there, honestly, and myself too. I was fully expecting to double back with the blind blink there. But Nia going to be getting out of dodge over to the LT wall, and looks like this time they will double back. Nia doing a fantastic job shaking things up in the middle of chase, keeping the Nurse guessing. But it will not be for long, as Nurse hot on their trail will get the down. First gen popping off here. 3 more gens necessary for Infinity to take set number 1. We'll have to wait and see, but this here will be the second hook here for the Nurse of a full 12. they can only allow for 2 more gens to get completed, but with a meaty 30% with that pop goes the weasel, Nurse is in a pretty good position, especially as they do get the mending status effect applied to the Nia. Looks like they are gonna go for the tunnel out here. Nia trying to get a line of sight blocker here, and looks like Nurse will be taking them over towards the shack. Bit of a double back though. Nurse over blinking. Gonna go for a bit of a long blink here. Nia playing a dangerous game to say the least as they dive in towards the Nurse, forcing a swing and extended fatigue as well. However, it won't be for long, though Nia doubling back once again, doing a fantastic job here, and Nurse just taking a moment to reflect on everything. Just taking a pause and going, okay, maybe I need to drop chase with Nia. Renato seemed a little bit easier in comparison. As they do get a hit there, and Renato dropping a pallet, trying to make a wish as they get this, try to get the stun, but unsuccessfully doing so, and getting the grab off the pallet. Fantastic grab there. However, 3 survivors remain in this game. No real slowdown to speak of. Nurse is in a difficult position. I fear that there will be another gen popping off here in just a few moments. Keep in mind, Nia was working on that gen to the left of main, and we see it pop off there and then. So we do see 10% off the gen up here in main, but it has a ton of progression. Even with the 30% with Pop Goes Wheezy here, I'm not sure it's going to be enough, as we do see Lori trying to make their way towards the unhook. Nurse is going to have to do something quick. Otherwise, I don't know. I fear that these survivors will complete this 4th gen, securing victory here in set number 1. Lori now in chase, Nia nowhere to be found. Ace, I imagine up in main. We do see the Lori going for the unhook here, and that would tell me they might just be the Deliverance player. We'll have to wait and see, as Nurse now gonna go for the tunnel out on the Renato. Gonna try and wait out this borrowed time. Renato just gonna hold W though, as they do block that line of sight, and looks like Nurse gonna go for it. Will get the down. However, that leaves the Ace and the Nia, and I imagine they're on that main generator as we speak. I'd love to say whether or not that's true based on the entity blockers. However, Nurse does not seem to be going towards main, which would tell me that something is up. We do see what appears to be an injured Nia as well. This is a huge position here for the Nurse. There's a dead hard, but doesn't matter. Nurse gets the down. Looks like they are going to slug out the Nia here. A little bit afraid of main, and for good reason, as that is the gen they needed. There's the down on the Lori, but it's all for naught, as that there will be the win condition met for Infinity. So congratulations to Infinity taking set number 1, but do not worry, we have a set 2 and potentially set 3 tiebreaker coming up here in just a few moments. I'll be way excited to see that, as we are going to be seeing a Plague mirror match on the Suffocation Pit. That is quite exciting to me. Hopefully y'all are excited as well, as we don't get to see a Plague mirror match on Suffle all too often. We definitely see it a lot more on some different maps, but Suffocation Pit is interesting, though that does have the consistent 3 gen. We'll have to wait and see what Plague is able to do, and if the survivors are able to break those 3 gens on either side. Ace, though, trying to make their way in to get this unhook or pickup. Looks like they're going to try and force the 1-for-1 trade and potentially get the pickup thereafter. There's the Firecracker to try and stop the blink, but to no avail. Nia now the only one left up on the ground, unless there's going to be an unbreakable play here. A cheeky hit there from the Nurse. Keep in mind, Nia does have dead hard, but now with them being in the mending status effect, they are no longer able to make use of it. And looks like we will see a bit of a locker play there, but Nurse gonna be blocking the exit. There's the down into the locker, and that will be that. Mind you, a really close match here, all of like a 1-point difference. So with that in mind, there's still potential for the Nurse here to get as many points as humanly possible, for if they do end in a true tiebreaker in set number 3, I mean, that 1 point could be the make or break of the entire match. But we'll have to wait and see, as Nurse now on the prowl for the 2 remaining survivors. We do see a Lori here trying to make their way towards main. I wonder if there's a reason for that. Could we potentially be seeing a unbreakable here from the Nia? That'd be my only thought process, but Nia seems to have stopped recovering, and Nurse kind of just waiting. Maybe in case of a Deliverance? I'm not sure what the nurse is thinking here, why they're biding their time. I mean, it's 30 seconds until deliverance. There's no basement there, friend. The nurse taking a quick peek, forgetting that basement's over in Shack. And no Unbreakable here from the Lori, who I think would have had it primed and ready. Nias impacts the campfire via the Entity. Ace not too far thereafter. And looks like you're still going to wait for the Ace to move to second stage before picking up the Lori, wanting to ensure. But, I mean, with the Lori having so little time on the bleed out, I don't think it is wise to do so. No flip-flop power struggle, so Nurse has all the time in the world, but they are taking their time here for whatever reason the Entity only knows. But Lori trying to crawl away, leaving a trail of blood behind them. And like we said, Nurse just taking their time here. There's the pickup. Maybe finally realizing that the Ace has moved to second stage, meaning that there is no deliverance play here today, and that there will be the true 4K for Dark Owls here in set number 1. Unfortunately, just not there fully. And there's the deliverance from the Lori. Maybe that's what they're waiting for. Maybe they're waiting for Ace to die on hook, but realizing they didn't have enough time on the bleed out timer. So we were right about the Lori having the deliverance in hand. Nurse with the rare vault over the window there, but there will be the down. Honestly, if the Nurse had waited any longer, there's a real possibility that Lori was going to bleed out on the ground thereafter. So makes a bit more sense why the Nurse took as long as they did to pick up the Lori. Some you know, real 3D chess going on here, 4D chess going on there, to say the least. But that there will solidify the 4K this time round as we do end set number 1. Infinity taking the set by all of 1 point. All right, and we are back with trial number 3, set number 2. Dark Owls killing against Infinity's Survivor team on the Suffocation Pit as the Vommy Mommy herself, the Plague. And I just realized something. I don't know if this was fixed, if it was a bug prior, or if they re-added it, but I can see score events again. Oh, that's fantastic news, because I'll be honest with you folks, it was very difficult for me to know whether or not the Plague actually landed their vomit on an object when we could not tell the score events, which also means I can tell Scourge Choke Pain Resonance once again when and if it activates. So very exciting stuff. But with that being said, Plague out on the prowl for some of these survivors. Yet to see any of them thus far. Those scratch marks going to be a key clue to finding them, and that there, my friends, is in fact an Ace. However, with a really strong loop here and still not in chase, the Ace is a fantastic place. However, looks like Plague will be dropping chase here, breaking the pallet and looking to go for the Survivor who did make their way towards middle and making their way towards the Shack side. Now, mind you, the gens over here, not exactly all too great. Looks like Plague will infect that, and no sign of Survivor who did make their way over here. Gen currently silent, and yeah, the gens are just a little bit too far away, at least for my liking, if I was this killer. They do kind of have a 3-gen here with 1 in the middle. Could argue 4-gen on this side, but it's not exactly the best in the world as you can only see 2, I guess all 3 from 1 location, more or less. So there's a real possibility the Plague might try and force its Survivor's hands to make their way over towards here. Mind you, Corrupt Intervention about to end, and so far, no injures, no infections on these Survivors so far. Also want to note that rock there, I don't remember seeing that all too often here on Suffopit, but definitely an interesting obstacle for these survivors to work around. Definitely can make good use of that if they play it right. That being said though, Plague making their way back over towards main side, trying to see if they can find these survivors. Looks like no real progress on that gen, and looks like we do see scratch marks going behind the back of main. There's the infection on the Lori, the first of it this match so far. And we do see the quick vault there, potentially from the Lori, as they do see the Plague doubling back. We do see them grabbing this corruption. Not sure if it's the right play. They currently really don't have a lot of pressure to work with, though that there is the Ace. No sign of any other survivors, though, including the infected Lori, who very well might just be walking things out, trying to slow down their infection. We do see a gen currently being worked on. We hear the cost of the Lori, so this is a fantastic spot for the Plague to be in. However, there's the vault from the Lori, potentially a Lithe as well, as they do make a bit of distance. Ace now infected as well, and Lori going to get hit by the Plague's puke. That was a fantastic hit there with a really great prediction. Trying to see if they can get another hit, but they are unable to land it. Survivor's also now aware of Thanatophobia, slowing things down just a little bit here as Lori does end up going down. So these survivors will need to be aware, of course, of getting all 4 infected, as both Ace and Lori now infected, injured, and 1 on the hook. Very cheeky firecracker play there from the survivors, unable to have it land. And that, there, friends, is a Scourge Hook Pain Resonance. That will regress the gens by, the most progressed gen by 25%. So we now know 3 out of the 4 perks. We're about to see the 4th here, though, as that, there, friends, is a Pop Goes the Weasel, regressing that gen there by 30% of its current progression. That being said, Plague going back to the unhook, we do see that no one else was infected, so that, my friends, is the Ace who did get that unhook. That is really important to know here, as Plague now incentivized to potentially go for the Ace here, though no sign of them, not even a whisper. Ace notoriously known for being quite quiet, but there's the Nia instead. Plague going for the long-range puke, unable to get the hit, though will infect the pallet. So if the Neo does want to play this style, they're going to have to be very careful, as that will be 3 survivors infected. And it looks like Plague will go for the injury here, just trying to slow things down with the Thanatophobia. I do think that was the right play, as you can always infect them another time. There's the Renato as well. This is huge. Now that Renato's now in chase, that means that Nia is unable to heal herself or get healed without getting infected as well, especially as Renato has the medkit in hand. Looks like we're going to see the full infection, and that will be the full set of stacks from Thanatophobia. He's unable to get to the pallet or the window in time, and that there is the down. 1 gen popping off, but honestly, Plague in a good spot, but good thing they saw that scratch mark. I saw too, as wondering if they would as well, and they did just in the nick of time, as they were not going to risk that pickup while the Renato was underneath the pallet. However, Lori making good use of this tile here, avoiding the stun, but will not take the blind. Maybe? Honestly, I'm not sure there. Maybe the Plague did take the blind, because Lori kind of got caught out in the middle of nowhere in that corner, not realizing where they were. That would have been a fantastic opportunity for the Plague to get the down, but instead going for the Renato. And we'll see if this is a Scourge Hook. Sure enough, it is, as well as the Pop Goes the Weasel. Mind you, this gen is not the most progressed, so there is another one elsewhere. Plague still with their 3 gen here on Shaq side. Ace did, in fact, cleanse. Joe just barely dodging that infection, not just once but twice, as they make their way over towards main side. Lori with the pallet stun attempt yet again, but this time not gonna go for the flashlight blind. You do see scratch marks making their way over here, that there is a Nia full infected as well. Mind you, Ace is the only one who can safely go for this unhook. And we do see that just now, though Renato not in a good spot, though they do have Shack Pallet available to them. They go for the vault though, and Play could potentially wait this out, but losing a little bit of distance there, as Renato will now wait at the pallet, trying to get the stun, unable to get it, will throw the pallet nonetheless. And looks like Renato trying to link tiles here, successfully doing so as they make it to the next pallet. The question is though, will they be able to make this work? Mind you, Plague might want to rotate this chase here in the other direction as they do get stunned. Renato, though, actually pushing themselves into the corner. This is not where they want to be. But I do want to note the fact that they do, in fact, have a lucky break. And unfortunately, with that mid-vault, Renato will go down. And they are about to be sent back to the campfire via... Actually, no. I think that was their first hook before, so this will be their second hook here. I was thinking that they might be sent back to campfire via the entity. Mind you, Renato has been hooked already though, so this will not be a Scourge Hook Pain Resonance, though the Plague will get a Pop Goes Weasel in hand. A Blast Mine coming in though, stunning the killer for just a little bit. And Plague will take that Pop Goes the Weasel. Not a lot of progress on these gens over by Shaq's side. Like we said, not the best 3 gen in the world, but still not bad for the Plague. We'll have to wait and see, as the Thanatophobia going to be knocked down to 3 stacks with the cleanse from the Nia. Honestly, there's an argument to be made that the Plague should not be grabbing these pools, as it forces the survivors to be injured for longer and longer and push them further and further into Shaq's side, as they'll need these pools in order to cleanse themselves. By getting the kill here on Ronaldo does mean that Thanatophobia loses a lot of its potency. My only issue with current version of Thana, as I do wish it did take into account dead survivors and not just injured or hooked or down. But, you know, that'll be for the feedback forums for behavior. That being said, though, we're not about to be sent back to campfire via the entity. No survivor in sight, and sure enough, there it is, leaving a 1v3 scenario here with 3 gens remaining in this match. Honestly, not a good position for these survivors, as the Plague attempts a mind game here on who I believe to be the Nia, and sure enough, there she is. Making her way over towards Shaq's side. This is exactly where the Plague wants her, as they loop in towards Shaq's side. It means they can protect the gens all while chasing, but Plague getting a little bit caught up there on the wall, unable to get a lot of distance here, and Nia now starting to drag the Plague further away from their 3-gen. Plague gonna have to be careful here. Honestly, going for the infection and walking away might be the smart move, but instead they're gonna go for the purge. And looks like they will grab it, but for what it's worth, I'm not sure if it is gonna work out in their favor, as we do see another gen pop off in the distance. That leaves just 1 gen remaining over on main side. The question is, are these survivors on their way towards Shaq's side as we speak in an effort to break into this 3-gen? Nia trying to get that stun, just working around that pallet very carefully. Really smart job. Plague getting the injure as well for what it's worth, but unless they get the down, is kind of pointless, and they need to get the down now. And yeah, Plague realizes that too, that they just do not have enough time, as we do see what looks to be the ace on their way into Shaq. We do see the 4th gen popping off over on main side, leaving just 1 gen remaining. The best case scenario here for the Plague is to absolutely get it down and get a Scourge Hook or Pop. Honestly, depending on the progression on the gen, it might just be worth it more to get Pop. Plague with the sneaky play there, but just unable to make it land. We do see Nia, who is fully cleansed, and there's a 10% regression from the ace. Not 2 10% regressions. That is huge for this Plague. Unfortunate for the survivors, to say the least, but that might just give the Plague enough time, as we do see what looks to be scratch marks heading over towards this gen. Blast by once again, I imagine from the ace, maybe why they jumped on that second time after that first miss. I don't know. This is going to be an interesting scenario. I do not think they got the infection. We did not see the score event. Either that or it's still infected from earlier. I'm not entirely certain. But we do see the infection there on that gen. All 3 infected, meaning that Nia can't really jump on the gen without being found out. However, the ace and the Lori are full infected. The question is now, who will lose their patience first? I'm getting a feeling that there's going to be a little bit of a grindy matchup, to say the least, but there's the Nia. We saw her go in and try and slow things down just a little bit. The question is if it will be worth it, as we do see that kick for 2.5% of the gen. And looks like Nia will make their way into Shaq, around it rather. And they're going to be sticking around. This is not the place you want to be. Plague does have the ability for the full infection here, and as they do run and vault more and more, they'll be able to be insta-down unless 2 survivors are on one of the other gens. I'm not sure if it's the right move for the Nia, but maybe it's a calculated risk. We don't know what the gen looks like over in the middle area, and if both Lori and Ace are on it, there it is. There's the 5th gen. Exactly what my concerns were, and I believe the Plague might be looking at a 2K here. We do see that blocked entity window, and Nia gonna get grabbed for what it's worth. I imagine she will be going to the basement, but no. Plague instead gonna be dragging her out, gonna be checking on this exit gate, but I think Ace and Lori are gonna be cutting their losses and making their way out via the exit gate over towards main. Now the question is, I don't think there's deliverance on Plague. Hold on, it's been 2 weeks, so I don't think there is, but let's just take a quick look-see. And sure enough, no deliverance for the Nia, and that'll be Harrison back to campfire via the entity. Honestly, really good showing by both sides. I think the Survivors played really well in just using the impatience of the Plague here to their advantage and able to get a 2-man out. All right, and we are back for what could be the final trial of this match. Right now, we have Infinity killing against Dark Owl Survivor Team as the Plague, once again on the Suffocation Pit. And in order to claim victory here in set number 2, they are going to need a 2K8 hook, which honestly is pretty manageable in my opinion. So we'll have to wait and see what Doc has in store for us today. Only perk we know so far is, of course, a Corrupt Intervention. But beside that, we'll have to wait and see, as no sign of the survivors so far. Plague's currently pretty confident that no survivors have made their way past the middle, and is doing a little bit of inspection here of these corners to make sure of just that. No scratch marks, no nothing. Talon or Plague where these survivors might be, as half of Corrupt Intervention has already expired. Plague going deep into main now, and we do see scratch marks. There she is. There is a Fang Min. Though, looks like Plague instead going to be dropping chase. Going for the knee here, going for a cheeky infection play, but unable to connect. Nia going to be going towards the back of main and trying to avoid the vomit, just not able to do so in time. Plague going for the full infection and not anything else. For you keen-eared viewers, you may have just heard a second perk pop off there. That is, in fact, a Bamboozle. Now the question is whether or not the Nia is aware of it as she moves back towards this tile, dropping it early, trying to waste as much time. Plague, though, interested in keeping them here at this tile, not looking to break it, just trying to go for the full infect. There it is. The question is whether or not the Plague will be able to get the mind game here in order to get the down. Nia going back and forth, Plague trying to get the hit, and there it is. There is the first down of trial number 4. Question is, have these survivors been working on the gens on the non-corrupted side? The entire time this chase has been happening, they could have made their way over, though this here is in fact a Scourge Hook Pain Resonance. We are regressing the most progressed gen by 25%, so we know 3 out of the 4 perks that the Plague has brought to play with today. The question is what this last one is. We'll have to wait and see. Though as Plague knows the win condition, they could potentially seek to have the Nia move to death right out the gate. Though we do see the first gen popping off over by Shaq's side. The question is, do they have another 1 or 2 gens primed and ready to go as well? There's the second one. I imagine third one not too far away. We'll have to wait and see, though, as they're going to need to send someone in quick, lest the Nia does move to the second stage. However, these survivors could be going to the game plan of, you know what? We can give up 2 survivors as long as they don't get additional 2 hooks thereafter. We're perfectly fine. There is a very real possibility that they're just going to jam out this 3rd gen and just go for the 3 gen here in the back of main. Now, that's going to result in a very grindy matchup, to say the least. But we'll have to wait and see as Nia does, in fact, progress to second stage. Only time will tell now whether or not the survivors will be able to get the unhook, as Plague will go for the Corrupt Purge. And it's going to be very difficult now for the survivors to do much of anything, as they're going to have about a full minute on the clock where they can potentially get a double down through the unhooked survivors. So, honestly, if I'm these survivors right now, the best case scenario is just to jam out gens and let the Nia progress to death. But we do see 2 survivors coming in, maybe even just trying to prime themselves on gens. The Plague does have to worry about that gen towards the back of main behind that hill, as they do not have any line of sight. We do see Nancy trying to make their way through bit by bit, but it looks like no one's going to be able to make it work here unless they get a last-second unhook. But that would be quite dangerous, as we do see the 3rd gen popping off. And at this point in time, we have the 4th gen over here in main, and Plague is going to be playing the slow him. No, now we're down to 3. I mean, honestly, I think this was the best case scenario here for Dark Owl's Survivor team, as all they need now is to break into this 3 gen here, and they are golden. That being said, Plague has a little bit of their power left. Going to be trying to get a injury here on the Nancy, and they will just barely miss there as they go to prime another. A 10% skill check regression there on the Gen, and looks like that is the Fangman and the Yunjin. They'll be trying to make their way over towards Shaq with the Plague in tow. Plague wanting to get infection here. The first of this virus to start cleansing more and more towards the main side. The question is if that will even matter. It's going to be a long and drawn out endgame, I fear, but I think this is very much within the realm of the Plague's ability to claim the 4K. At the same time, Survivor's doing a fantastic job just drawing their attention. We see both the Yunjin and the Fang Min currently infected. That means they're on that Gen over towards the middle. They're going to get that infection on the Nancy, but honestly, there's a real argument to be made of not even going for that hit, not even going for the chase even, as we see both Fangmin and Yunjin going to be making their way over towards Shaq now. And we're going to see Plague go for the hit on the Gen that is only 2.5% plus 0.5% per second thereafter. Though I'm not sure if it is going to matter, as we're probably going to see a total of 3 cleanses here. That would make the most sense. Just cleanse over on Shaq's side. It makes the Plague forced to go over there if they're going to go for the cleanse. We do see an early drop of the pallet there, and looks like this is the Yunjin, who is fully infected and broken as we speak. Bamboozle coming into play. Question is, will Yunjin be able to get anywhere? It doesn't look like they will, as they will go down. This does mean that Plague will potentially be able to get a Scourge Hook Pain Resonance here, regressing the most progressed Gen by 25%. Though it looks like it is going to be in a position where the Survivors will very easily be able to get the unhook. So, slowing down the game, yes, but it does mean that the Survivors are still in it. Whereas if the Plague was able to hook in the 3 Gen, then that's pretty much game over. That being said, though, Plague going back to the Gen, trying to see if they are able to find any Survivors that snuck on back here. Honestly, really surprised Survivors have just not gone about cleansing. I think that is the right move here, is just cleanse and slowly but surely kind of chip away through the pools as you make your way towards main. But Nancy now in chase, and looks like they're going to be going back to this tile that we've seen them at once before. Going to check for the greed, and Nancy will do just that, but maybe a sprint burst getting them some distance here. But Plague now with the bloodlust, going to go for a cheeky swing here, I imagine. There it is, but the stun from the Nancy, fantastic job. The question is, will it matter, as Nancy is going to be making the way over towards the next tile. Looks like they will be able to get to the Paladine. There's the 5th generator, though. This is huge for these Survivors. However, I do believe we heard a noise notification, not sure what from. A cheeky swing there from the Plague, but Nancy outplaying them, holding W, make their way back over towards the pallet. The question is, will they get there in time? And with the double bloodlust, it does not look like it. However, do want to note here that I do believe a 2K1 hook does result in a tie. Do also want to note that No Way Out has been procced with only 2 stacks on it, so I do believe that is about 36 seconds where these Survivors are unable to leave via the exit gates. Now would be the perfect time for them to cleanse, and there's the Yunjin on the first cleanse. I imagine Fang Min not going to be too far behind. Trying to think now what these Survivors can do. Oh, that is a less than ideal scenario. We see blood and scratch marks from the Fang Min. This could be quite unfortunate for the Survivors, as we do see Bamboozle Fang Min with the drop and the vault. But the question is, will they be able to get much of anywhere, as we see the Firecracker dropped in desperation. No Way Out now has expired, and we do see the unhook on the Nancy from the Yunjin, and just barely clipping the Fang Min there, as she will end up going down. And I do imagine that this might just result in the win for Infinity here, as I think they might be able to claim that 2K8 hook that they desired. There's the exit gate. And yeah, that will just barely get them there with the fresh hook here on the Fang Min. And with a Plague having their power for the next 60 plus seconds, I mean, this means that the very least Feng Min will go to second stage. Now, if, big if here, the survivors are able to successfully get everyone out after Feng Min moves to second stage, it might result in a tie set. However, it's going to depend on a lot of different factors when it comes to escape points. So we'll have to wait and see, as we do see Nancy trying to open up this exit gate. If they're able to successfully do that, they might be able to get the Feng Min out before they move to death, especially as the Plague does not have any other corrupt purges here, or corrupt pools here, available to them. So as soon as their power expires, these survivors will be able to go for the unhook. Yunjin coming in at the worst moment, though. Nancy trying to go in as well. A very, very aggressive play here from the survivors, and I think it actually will work against them, as there's the flashbang on the Plague for what it's worth, but now they're unable to get the unhook cleanly. Nancy doing a fantastic job, though, dodging these purges, and Nancy will take the hit, but what does that mean now? They still have time on the clock for the corrupt purge. The exit gate is open, yes, but now they need to heal up. They don't have enough time to do both that and get the unhook. Unfortunately, I think the survivors just played a little bit too aggressively here, thinking that they didn't have enough time to get the unhook in basement, but with Yunjin leaving via the exit gate, I do believe this will seal Feng Min's fate. And that there will result in victory for Infinity here in set number 2. So GG, well played to both sides, and congratulations to Infinity, walking away victorious here in round 5 of season 7 of Champions of the Fog.